Perfect. Well, welcome, guys. So today I've got Jamie and Deolinda from Fundy Pros. Honestly, I'm really excited about this episode. One, because you guys are not realtors, which is really great. Not to say anything bad about realtors, but I think what I'm trying to say is I'm really excited to have people that are directly involved in our industry. And I think a company like yours, which I'm sure we're going to learn a lot about, is really important in our community. And that's really where I want to start, because to me, my goal to kind of create that introduction is to just do a little bit of research to find that out. And this time really, I found a couple of keywords there that didn't really answer my questions, and I thought it brought up the perfect question, is like Fundy Pros and seeing specialty construction firm. What does that mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
In other terms, we're a subcontractor.
Yeah. Okay.
So we take on part of the overall scope of a construction project, and today we offer 8 services. So we offer in both residential and commercial settings, steel stud framing, insulation, drywall, drywall ceilings or T-bar ceilings,
Yep.
bulkheads, some flooring installation, some stucco as well on the outside of the building to make it look nice and pretty. Some fire stop, just to name a few. So we are typically hired on by a general contractor, developer, or a builder.
Okay.
And we take on a small portion of the work. And what we do is we take on work that has a lot of dependencies, so that we become this one-stop shop where we can do much of the scope of a project under this one umbrella. It has some advantages to our customer, because they don't have to deal with multiple sub-trades or as many sub-trades. They deal with Fundy Pros as a one-stop shop. And mind you, there are things that we don't do, like we don't do plumbing and mechanical work and some of that, but we take on a big portion of the scope typically.
Okay. Yeah. So with that said, that means your responsibility is a lot of employees.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So how many employees do you currently have?
So we're close to 260 employees today.
Wow. Okay. And so in terms of when you're looking at getting that amount of workforce, like how many people are on a day-to-day basis managing all of those people there? Like, is it just Jamie here or Deolinda? You're doing this together, or how does that look?
Listen, I'm fortunate to wake up in the morning and go to work to a great team that helps support the initiatives and the journey that we're on. I don't do it all by myself, right? And I wouldn't do it all by myself.
Humble.
No, but it's the truth. I can't do it by myself.
Yeah.
So we've developed a leadership team that takes care of their own part of the business. Deolinda is the head of HR and learning for Fundy Pros, so she is, for all intents and purposes, the expert of recruitment, attraction, and everything in between recruitment to retention. And we've got a big piece where we invest quite a lot of time building a process of how we develop talent at Fundy Pros. So Deolinda is one of the key pieces to make sure that happens. And of course, we've got department heads or division managers in other parts of the business that take care of the performance of that part of the business. So I'm very fortunate to have a really good team help me steer the ship in the direction.
I'm sure the employees that are going to be watching this are going to be like, man, he hit that one right out of the park. And also and hopefully I'm going to get a raise at the end of this too.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was also looking at you guys have been involved and I think you've answered some of that, and I'd love to get a little bit more into detail, but you've been a part of the casino, the Université of Moncton, the law building, Champlain Place as well. I saw an Empire Theater.
Yeah.
When we look at projects like this, let's maybe start off with the casino, is what involvement specifically, how does that look, and how challenging is it for a project? Because that's we're right close by. It's massive, right?
Yeah, big project, big undertaking. The challenge with the casino was there was a very tight deadline.
Okay.
So a lot of work needed to be done and coordinated, sequenced properly to make sure that the casino opened on time. Excuse me. So the complexity there is making sure that you understand what's part of your scope.
Okay.
Like, what are you being paid to do?
Right.
And then making sure you align the right resources with the right skill set to execute that work so that we deliver a project on time for a customer. So quite a challenging project, and it was phased out. We had 3 phases to it. The casino, we call it the casino, but it's got the casino portion, the Palladium, which is the entertainment piece to it, and then the hotel.
Okay.
So
and you were involved with everything. Wow.
a lot of work.
Not small at all.
Yeah, a lot of work. Yeah. And through many years of doing this every day, we learn how to get better. Right? We fail and we learn and we get better, and we fail and we learn and we get better, and that's the rinse and repeat cycle. And one thing that we learned over the years is how critical time is to construction. Time is money, and there's no better example than in construction to show that. It's oftentimes, if you can't rent your apartments on time, you're losing 100%. At times hundreds of thousands of dollars in rent. If you're not able to open a commercial space on time and you have a lease agreement signed with a tenant, there too you could lose some money. So we learned over the years that what customers value, amongst other things, is time and making sure you deliver a project on time.
Yeah. So when you and that's a really good point that you make there, because I think of, like, in a lot of these projects, time is obviously money, like you've mentioned, but it also, like, requires an understanding of how long do these processes actually have to take place. And in order to make sure that the expectations are realistic, like, how involved are you in that process there? Because, like, I think, like, I'm very involved in our design center, and with the design center, we often get projects that show up at our doorstep, and it's like, I wanted it done yesterday. And it's unrealistic, to say the least, but you have to have an honest conversation. And I think the honest conversation is a transparent one, where you've got to say, listen, like, we've got lead times on products, we've got installation, we've got the design phase, and all those processes there take X amount of time. Like, do you have that same relationship in the process, or is it more something they say, hey, we just need it done by this time, and too bad?
At the end of the day, we're offering a service to customers, right? And customers have expectations, as they should. How do you navigate that, I think, becomes the question. And the answer to that is honesty and transparency, right? Sometimes you have delays in the logistic chain, the logistics, and material doesn't arrive as quick as you expected it to arrive, or it has defects, or other projects have significant delays, which impedes on your ability to deliver on the next project. And honesty is the best way to approach a situation to navigate conflict. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to sort of re-establish those expectations going forward. And perhaps we are the right fit for that particular project, and perhaps we're not. And if we're not, it means, we will do business again on another project. Just this time, it won't work out. And in the last couple of years, that has been a big story, a recurrent story, where you just have a lot of projects that you can execute in the run of a year, and you have to say no to some customers, and that's honestly
it's not easy.
No, and it's what keeps me up at night. It's the hardest part of my job, is to say no to our customers. I realize that through the years we've developed wonderful relationships with our customers, and I know that we can develop even some great relationships with customers that we've just met. Unfortunately, we have to have
that's the line, right?
You have to choose, and that's what you have to say no, and you have to choose, and those are
boundaries.
Boundaries, right? And those are easier said than done.
That's true. That's true. Now, when it comes to, and I've more recently started to understand this, is that there is kind of a balance between, like, well, it's going to take time, but also it requires money. And I think that sometimes it's like, well, you kind of got to pick one or the other. And do you often see like some of the budgets being more unrealistic and causing that time problem, or vice versa? It's like, well, we've got the the right the right budget, but we just don't require, like, we don't have enough time, right?
Yeah.
Do you see that happen often?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you're naming are two really important elements of probably 3 or 4 elements of any construction project. So you're talking about time, and you're talking about budget, which is money.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a way to blend those two together.
Yeah.
You may be faced with a customer that wants both of those.
Yeah.
A job finished on budget and on time. And sometimes you have customers that value one more than the other.
Right.
And part of the discovery process with not only a customer, but for every construction project, you want to understand, what does the customer value in this particular project? Maybe time is more important than budget, or maybe it's the opposite. So you get to understand that a little better. And that's sort of the first few steps in that discovery, where you get to understand how you can deliver value to a customer as well.
Right.
Asking the question is probably the first step.
Yeah. Yeah. Now on a project like, and maybe this is the perfect question sent your way here, is on a project like the casino, like how many people are we talking about that get involved in something like that?
This was before your time.
Well before,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had upwards of 100 people at the casino.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And are we talking, like, what trades are we talking about that have been, or what type of demand of people did we had in a project like that?
Yeah. We had steel stud framers, insulators, drywall installers.
Okay.
And our steel stud framers would build walls and ceilings, and specialty ceilings sometimes. We were talking about the Champlain Place earlier.
Yeah.
If you look up at the ceiling, you see these round or oval like floating clouds. Well, those are all handmade.
No way.
And very skilled tradespeople wrap their head around how to take off and measure and build the symmetrical product. So there's a lot involved in building specialty ceilings as well, which is part of the scope at the casino. Sound panel installation, just to make sure there isn't a lot of echo. And of course, the building has a significant amount of stucco on it that we also call EFIS. So we had a pretty sizable crew of EFIS applicators on that job.
Okay. And where do you find all these people?
So
what's the secret?
I was reading some days ago that 1.6 million people are employed in the construction industry.
Crazy.
I'm wondering where these people are.
Yeah.
Because we're constantly on the lookout for guys, and when we're looking out for guys, we're looking out for skilled tradespeople, right? Because we want to have somebody, straight away get onto the job and be able to go with the flow, as opposed to having somebody who might not know what is to be done and then might slow down the entire process.
Right.
So so we're looking, we have all possible avenues. We're looking online. We have job portals, of course. We have Indeed, we have LinkedIn. We do Facebook live events. We do.
I saw that.
We were toying with the idea of doing a podcast, so that might be something that we might do in the near future. Yeah.
You could be a first guest.
You could be our first guest.
Sign me up.
Be good to us.
Yeah, there you go.
So then we have these typical avenues such as online portals and things like that. We're using social media actively to hire people. We are doing walk-in interviews. We're doing flyers. We're doing all these sorts of things that out of the box thinking. We're considering approaching colleges. We're considering the interns whom we have doing summer jobs with us. Little things like that go a long way. In fact, we have communities that have come into New Brunswick, such as the Ukrainian communities, and you have Indians and so many different Filipinos, and they all have certain skill sets that we are looking for. So we've been seeing in the recent past that, in fact, just today we were looking at the Ukrainian community who have the skills with stucco and things like that, which is like a dying trade in New Brunswick, and we're trying to find as many people as we can to get this going. So we're reaching out to different communities to leverage the skill sets that they can bring to the table. And another avenue we're looking at actively is that if the tradespeople are not so available here in New Brunswick, let's look outside. So we're looking at Alberta, and we have had some success with Alberta.
No way.
Yes, and Ontario and BC and Winnipeg and places like that. So everyone wants to throng and come to New Brunswick. So that's something that we want to capitalize on, and we're doing that.
We thought for, I think, a long time that it was a really best kept secret, and I think sometimes when you're here, I remember like when I was in high school, everybody wanted to get out, right? But they all slowly come back in somehow, right?
That's right.
But I think we've got a pretty nice little area here.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you think about like some of these skilled trades, and it's funny, like and you guys probably do quite a bit of drywall, right? Why is it the hardest trade to do? Have you done drywall?
No.
Oh my God.
I don't think it's the hard. I mean, from an outsider's, he knows the right answer, right? I'll give you an outsider's perspective. So I don't think that it's the hardest thing to do, but it is one of the something that takes physical strength to do.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it a little, hard, putting it in your words. But otherwise, I don't think it's the hardest. I think finishing requires more skill.
That's maybe more where I was leaning towards.
Yeah. It's
So,
an art.
I know,
It's really an art. A good crack filler taper can make a botched drywall job look perfectly fine.
Yeah.
With effort and time and a lot of skills. But when you think about it, it's artistry.
It is,
that
100%.
gets painted over, but it takes a lot of skill and a lot of practice and a lot of reps to get to that level of mastery.
Yeah.
Drywall has its complexities too. Like Deolinda said, it's heavy.
Yeah.
And of course you have multiple sizes of drywall, right?
Yeah.
4x12s, it's pretty heavy and difficult to handle, but I think aside from being heavy, the complexity is people assume that you just slap it on the wall.
Right.
But there's a little bit more to it. There's how do we make this task a little bit more efficient?
Yeah.
And then that's sort of the tips and tricks of the trade as you learn when you're paired up with a good mentor that is willing to show you those tips and tricks, you can learn the drywall trade fairly quickly. Now, of course, it's like anything. You have to practice in order to get better, but there's a way to learn any trade quick, and that's with intention behind what are we developing and how are we developing. So it's
So would you say like, and this is like, I'm thinking about what you just said right now, is there a lot of this that's acquired on the job? Like, is it like, I don't need that much experience to get into it, but a company like Fundy Pros might be the right place to start because we do the on-the-job training? Or is it something that requires a certain skill level before you come in, or how does that look?
So if I have to answer that question, I'd say that, well, we do need some amount of skill, but then a lot of it depends on the will that the person has.
Right.
Because we have the requisite amount of experience for our guys to be able to train on new folks that come in. Some time ago, in fact, last year in August, we launched the Fundy Pro School of Excellence, which is a trade school where we tied up with community college here, NBCC. And so NBCC becomes the face of the place where, job seekers, or not job seekers, rather students go into, enroll for a program, and then we take over and we train that program with our instructor and our facility. So we really did a lot of research to put that program out there. And in addition to that program running, we also simultaneously do on-the-job trainings for our folks so that the senior guys have that much more support. And when I say support, once you train them, then those guys become the support that they need.
Right.
So we have that as an ongoing cycle, and it's part of our development plan in the coming year. So our financial year starts in June. So this being the start of our financial year, that's what I've been planning the whole day. In fact, development plans for the coming year for our folks.
Very cool.
So that is like a agile cycle of constantly having to train the folks, so that cycle is done, and then we move to a new bunch of guys, and then we're constantly keeping our labor efficiency at its peak.
Right. Now, in terms of what might be the most in-demand skill that you're currently looking for? Like, are there specific positions that come across as ones that are hard to fill, or alternatively, it's like we just always have demand for it, so we just need more guys? Like, is it drywalling? Like, what's the positions that you see that are like, hey, like, you know, these are the ones that are, you know, ones you should be looking at, right?
So the bulk of our workforce is drywallers.
Okay.
And so the trade is called a lather trade, right? And that includes both drywall as well as framing.
Okay.
So a bulk of our trade is dependent on these folks. But we also have finishing. So finishing is also a huge part of our trade. But if I have to say, you know, who is more difficult to latch onto, I'd say tapers for the current moment.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And is it more because of the skill set required?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And it takes time to develop that skill.
Okay.
Right. So when you're installing drywall, you have a partner. So if I have a senior partner, then that guy is holding most of the weight and trying to get me to learn how I need to angle my body to lift that up.
Okay.
And how to approach the task, and what's the best way to be efficient in this task.
Yeah, so all of those things, I have a little partner who's helping me do that. But as a taper, I'm having to do that by myself. And like he said earlier, you know, a drywaller's botched up job can very easily be managed with a good taper's skill, you see. So that's why we find at this point of time that tapers and taping skills, we call them tapers as well as finishers, in case you're wondering what that was. So at the moment, that's a skill that's, you know, we find good guys, we hold on to them.
Okay. And is it something that is like relatively found in all types of people? Like, do you find like it's more local people that have been traditionally the ones that you look for in tapers, or just that have this skill set maybe? Or are you seeing more newcomers? Because, you know, like you say, 1.6 million people in the construction industry, where do they pop up?
Yeah.
Are those people there already? Are those tapers there and it's just hard to find, or what?
So if I have to speak of drywallers first, drywallers are predominantly in in these parts, in America, Canada, maybe Mexico. Back in India, Philippines, the Middle East, drywall is not so popular. It's more concrete, right?
Oh, okay.
So if you're bringing international talent, then we have to consider that, because
And
they
you'd have to
may
train
have
them,
some
right?
drywall experience, because office spaces and stuff would typically use drywall.
Okay.
You know, they're called gypsum boards between cabins and between offices. So very limited experience, so it's difficult to find that kind of talent from overseas. So for drywall talent, we have to look internally within Canada. But for taping and finishing skills, that's something that we find that we are able to even look outside of Canada and be able to bring those people in.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, in terms of you know, the direction that Fundy Pros is going, like, you know, we were talking about some of these projects that I think are more on the commercial side. Do you do more than commercial?
We categorize in two different, two different types of projects. It's either a residential or a commercial project. Some would say that you have institution projects or institutional projects and industrial projects. To me, institution and industrial become part of that commercial.
Okay.
So we lump them in two different categories, and I'd say that until recently, any large multi-residential project, we would consider that a commercial type project. But now, I mean, it's safe to say that it's pretty clear it's residential.
Yeah. Cool. And in terms of, you know, when you're looking at, you know, and I'm talking a lot about labor and stuff like that, are a lot of these people that are currently within your company, are they multifaceted? Are they able to do both in the residential and the commercial?
Yes.
Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah.
And we also try to train them such that they have cross-functional abilities, so that, you know, they can double up as a framer as well as a drywaller, things like that. But sometimes it's difficult to have them, you know, move into taping, because that's a specialized skill. But within the lather trade, yes, we try to, you know, as much as possible, train them such that they're cross-functional and we can benefit from that.
Nice. Now, we haven't even got into maybe some of your backgrounds before construction, and I'm going to assume none of us were born in construction. What I guess what inspired you to get into this industry here?
Yeah. My dad's a tradesperson.
Okay.
So I've been in around construction for a little while. And I can still remember, like, I'd work with Dad at nights or during weekends, and Dad is a crack filler and drywaller and does a few other things, but my first few hours in the trade were spent crack filling.
Okay, no way.
And at one point, my father looked at me and he said, "You're costing me too much money." And I was putting more mud on the floor than I was on the wall.
Everything.
So he looked at me and he goes, "I'll give you the rest of the day." and all kidding aside, but he looked at me and he goes, "Listen, you do whatever you want to do, but don't do what I do."
Okay.
And that really, at the moment, I didn't think much of it, but I felt like I still needed to be attached to trades in a way, and I knew that the hands-on trades was probably not my forte, but I could contribute in another way. And so I went to university and did my time there, and my first job was coming out of university was at Fundy Pros, and all of a sudden I felt back connected to the trades, and I've always had this deep appreciation for tradespeople and what they contribute to communities, and to be able to do that in a different way was something that attracted me to Fundy Pros, and still it's what gets me up in the morning. Cool. And I have a little chip on my shoulder in a sense, because I want to show the world that trades is a wonderful way to build a good life. And
I like that.
and today the landscape is a little different. The economy is different, and tradespeople coming into the market these days won't see a layoff anytime soon. And you go back 20 years ago, and tradespeople in the province of New Brunswick, perhaps they'd work 6 or 8 months out of the year.
It used to be pretty much seasonal.
And it was seasonal, and you would expect, and you would prepare your family budget around 2, 3, 4 months of shortage of work or being laid off. Today, not the case, right? The outlook in the construction industry in Atlantic Canada is very positive. Anybody wanting to go in the trades, or anybody in the trades today, would not have or will not have to live through the same economy, if you will, or economic reality as my father 20 years ago.
Right.
So it's a wonderful time to be in trades, and wonderful time to build a life for you and your family, and have trades as an employment support that good life. And we make it a point at Fundy Pros to highlight that. It's anytime we can talk to mom and dad around highlighting the benefits of working in trades and giving them a different perspective, right? What trades are all about. We do it because mom and dad also influence
100%,
daughter or son towards whatever path. And if we can get mom and dad around the table and give them a little bit of what trades are all about, and oftentimes we find them saying, geez, we didn't know. It's a valuable, and I say this too, like it's a valuable type of employment, because at the end of the day, you can step back. If you're a tradesperson, you can step back and you can look at the work that you did.
What you built, right?
Right, and you can say, I started here in the morning and I finished here at the end of the day, and you can see value for yourself. But a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to one of the installers that helped us build Cineplex, and he was telling a story about the first time he brought his wife and kids to the Cineplex after it was all built. And he
that must have been pretty sharp,
isn't it? So looking at the ceilings and saying, Dad did this. And in the bathroom, Dad did this, and that's pretty sharp. So you get to not only see what you do in the run of a day, but you get to kind of show off a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And that has value. It's very different than working in an office setting where,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe you measure success by the amount of phone calls you get in a day or the amount of emails.
Emails you respond to.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's not the same thing. So trades you can actually see what
Yeah.
you do at the end of the day, and you can celebrate that.
Would you agree, or is Jamie just blowing smoke here?
No, so, when he spoke about the trades, and I'd like to say we do these little try trade events.
Yeah.
So where young kids come in. The other day we did a try trade event. We had close to 400 kids that come in, and they came to our booth and they tried out, what we had. We had a little frame with small pieces of drywall and, finishing and applying that whatever plaster or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And they enjoyed it so much, and then we took videos and then we posted that, but they loved it so much, thinking that, I didn't know it was this enjoyable, So little things like that. And then, like he said, talking to mom and dad, we did job fairs. We do that all the time.
Yeah.
We attend job fairs and we have our little booth, and we have mom and dad along with the young kids coming in to say, how is it? Can you tell us a little bit more? And we're doing the convincing about, that guy in the neighborhood who has 3 cars. He's a tradesperson, and that's true. There's
Also
so much
true,
money to be made, right?
I know. Yeah. Who would have thought? Eh?
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I remember like my experience in it. Like I am not a hands-on person. I've kind of learned as I went with renovating my own house. But I really like the point that you make with like being able to start from one side to the room and end up in the other and being like, damn, I did that. Like,
Yeah.
that's
so
a
good.
really cool feeling. And I think like it isn't quantifiable in everything that you do, and the point that again that you make with like by the amount of emails that you respond and all that, it's not that. I don't think you get that same fulfilling experience. And
No.
it's not to shit on like doing office jobs and stuff
No,
like that.
no,
I think
no.
it's very much important. Like I'm working in office. I think we're all working in office jobs. But the sense of pride and ownership, I think is really special, and it's worth celebrating, right?
And we often, we can take a step back too and say, what type of work do we actually do? Not type of work as in, am I drywalling or am I framing, but the type of building we're building.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate to contribute to our community.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We build schools, we build hospitals, we build places where people like to go wine and dine. So I'm not saying that we're wonderful community contributors in construction, but we are. We do contribute to the growing landscape of New Brunswick, and it's a wonderful thing to take back, I think, and show your kids that you can do that and you've done that. And imagine you build the school for your own daughter, right?
True.
Isn't that a cool connection over time? So, it's you use the word fulfilling, and it's, I couldn't have picked a better word. It is a fulfilling feeling to be able to show people what you do. Yeah.
So from your experience before this, like we talked a little bit before, being here for about a couple of years now, what happened before this? What's the little story to get to the point you are today?
So I came to Canada in month of May 2022, 2 years ago. Yeah. This was the first job. Like he said, like Jamie said, his first job in construction was with Fundy Pros. My first job in Canada was with Fundy Pros.
She's still here,
special
so
connection
which is a
there,
good
of
sign.
course.
That's right.
Yeah, rooting for it all the way. So so before that, I was with I've been with associated with HR my entire career actually, but more with learning and development, things like that, which aligns to HR anyway. So attending events, doing recruitment activities, all of these things were things that I was used to doing anyway. But when I came here, things were different, right? Because I'm now hiring tradespeople. So there's a very different group of folks that I'm hiring. I'm hiring them for their skills. I already know by looking at their resume if he's a good candidate or not, which can't be said very easily for regular office goers, right? There's different behaviors and stuff and body language to read and things like that. Here, because we are so desperate for tradespeople, if he has 5 years of experience and he's worked with a good company and somebody can back him up by way of references, he's my guy, pretty much, right? So a lot of different perspectives to consider, but at the end of the day, it's people management, what we do in HR. So, and people are the same around the world.
Right.
So, they expect the same things. They expect it to be treated with respect. They want to be included in decision making. They want a good compensation. They want to be treated fairly while they are with the organization. They want their onboarding experience to be enriching. They want to feel like they are learning something new as opposed to just being herded, into a group. We want also to be an employer of choice at the end of the day. So we want to be able to give them compensation that is well ahead of what our competitors are giving them. We want them to stay with us. Because we are worth staying with, as opposed to just a number or just a retention metric. So we try to do what we can, and the topmost thing that we do is developing them. Because we're really investing, we go all out, we're really investing in every employee that we have to make sure that they become a better version of themselves, just so that they feel productive, not just to keep them as a happy workforce, but to keep them as a productive workforce, because that then translates into being a happy employee. So that's what we focus on. We really put in efforts for employee engagement and all of these things.
She said that so well that I feel like I almost want to go work for you guys right now. Sign me up.
We're looking.
Now, it's kind of like I'm thinking of two questions really, but one that stands out is like, have you found that they're in the process, maybe in North America or even just more recently, that there's more involvement with technology in the whole process?
Yes. From a recruitment perspective, you mean to say? Yes. So, well, from our perspective, it's a little different, because when you have tradespeople, then they're not so familiar with some technological tools that we might use for the recruitment process. But outside that, in general, from a recruitment perspective, when we're hiring for our management roles and things like that, we are using tools that can evaluate behavioral attributes and things like that. There are video interviews and things that we're using. So whatever is out there, we're using all of those things, but we might not use it to that extent with some tradespeople.
Construction is the industry is very slow at adopting technology, and the rate of improvement when you look at technology in construction is lagging quite severely compared to other industries. So our ability to integrate technology, new software, etc., has been really slow. There is some picking up of steam with that. So we have on almost 80% of projects that we do, we have a customer who wants us to either buy a license or to be part of a construction management software during the life cycle of a project. Typically, that's where they update the documents, any clarifications or informations.
Communication tool, right?
That's right, centralized in one location where all the different trades can have access to. So from that perspective, you're seeing that more and more present on construction projects. But you've got some really cool things happening around the world where there's a company out of California, for example, that can help installers with a VR headset identify where this particular piece of steel stud would go. And that's with crazy. The VR headset, you scan the room, and when it identifies the location where that piece should go, it will basically shadow it like in the headset. So you walk towards that location, and as you get closer, the shadow gets closer to you, and it'll start blinking when you're at the right location, and like super sharp. There's and then there's the other piece of off-site construction too. So we typically see construction in Canada being done on-site, right? You deliver your materials on-site, you deliver your equipment and your tradespeople on-site, and they assemble on-site. modular construction, another way of putting it, off-site
Yeah.
construction, modular construction is picking up steam too.
It is,
Right? Again, as we talked about earlier, time is important, right?
100%,
So
yeah.
how do we find ways to save time on the construction schedule, and also how do we mitigate some of the risk associated to a construction project, weather being one of them, right?
Yeah, last year I can think of was like, raining every day.
That's right.
And it's
That's
challenging, right?
So if you can eliminate those factors that tend to impede on project schedules, and you favor, let's say, a manufacturing facility to do part of the construction, why not? Right? So there's some builders and developers, not only in Atlantic Canada, but throughout Canada, that are very interested in investing in that sort of modular or off-site construction. And we've been part of a few projects around the province here to really be at the forefront of the implementation of different construction methods in New Brunswick and Atlantic Canada, really. So there's some cool things, I think, that we'll start to see in the next few years. Technology, generally speaking, changes very quick, and the refresh rate is really quick. And I think we're going to start to see that in construction in the coming years. It'll be nice to see.
Yeah. Now, what type of I'm thinking about like how many people that end up being on a job site, like what type of software or what type of process is put in place in order to communicate with all those people that are there and to keep them on track or on deadlines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How are you managing all of that?
Yeah, daily huddles.
Okay.
Daily huddles is really the way to go. It's a simple thing to put in your calendar if you're a foreman running a job. In the morning, you have all of your team members huddle up, and you talk about many things, but the things that are very valuable is, did we hit our plan last week or yesterday, depending on what you're discussing. But, did we hit our plan yesterday? What got in the way, right? Because a plan is a plan, and sometimes you don't hit your plan. And while that's okay, what you want to do is you want to understand what got in the way. Maybe you had to wait 2 hours to have access to the building because the building was locked, right? But you planned to install drywall during those 2 hours that you lost because of this particular situation. So you want to understand that. And who better to bring that up than the installers themselves?
I agree. Yeah.
So you do that in your morning huddle, and you also talk about what's the plan for the rest of the day or perhaps tomorrow. And you get the installers around that conversation too, because they can very quickly explain to you what they need to hit their plan. Maybe another tool or another piece of equipment that we may not have on site. So that process of daily huddle is really important to clarify the expectations, but also understand what sort of impediments you would have that would get in the way. And your installers are the best people to tell you that.
I couldn't
They
agree
feel
more
it.
with that.
They feel it and they see it, right? So get them involved in the conversation is part of the secret sauce, I think.
And you said it so well, because I think the expectation a lot of the times, I think in a lot of these jobs where you have like many people to manage is someone's going to tell me what to do. But oftentimes it's the people that are specifically doing those tasks on a daily basis that end up having those answers based on their experience, right? Because if you just listen to them and you get the right information from what they've experienced just in installing this or waiting an hour for a door to open and stuff like that, you often get those quick solutions that show up from there. At the end of the day, there's someone making those decisions, but it's important to do that active listening, right?
And the learning that can come with it too, because depending on what the plan is for the rest of the day, maybe there's a challenging task ahead, and that challenging task requires somebody more senior on site as part of your team composition to chip in and help perhaps a more junior person understand how they would do this. And then all of a sudden you start to build a very engaging but also a learning culture within the organization. And that is very important, especially, and we talked a little bit about learning a while ago, and I wanted to mention this. One thing that I've learned in the last couple of years is, while in construction we have an aging workforce, right? But what really is interesting with that aging workforce is most of them, as part of their legacy, they want to teach someone what
That's
they know.
true. Yeah.
And we've put in a lot of effort to find the best way to allow our more senior people to have that avenue to share. And we have that mentorship relationship, mentor to mentee relationship, and mentors play a critical role in junior people's development. Absolutely critical role.
What does a plan like that look like with the mentorship and all that?
So, in fact, for this year, we had that last year and the year before last as well. This year, we have more concerted efforts towards that. So, what we want to do is we want to build a development plan that takes into consideration the experience that a particular person can bring. So, since we're on the topic of retirees, I can talk about that. We have folks in the system who are on the cusp of retirement, right? And we don't want to lose that knowledge that they have. We want to be able to have them share or transfer that knowledge, which they're all willing to do.
Yeah.
So we put a program in place that has a certain amount of hours dedicated to, that learning transfer on the job. And then we do an evaluation of how much that person's performance has improved as an outcome of that. So that's one area of development. We also have identified some senior folks whom we call journey persons within the organization, and we created a pool of these journey persons. We put them through a mentorship training program so they know exactly what they're getting into. We give them some compensation that makes them feel like their contributions are valued, and they're being valued for the contributions that they're making. And then we pair them up with folks who are willing to learn or whom we see as high potential employees. And once that partnership is created, then we just put a measurement criteria in place and ensure that this partnership is tracked to see that it has indeed resulted in a positive outcome for both parties.
Okay.
So that's something that we're doing, so that not only are the guys who want to learn have an avenue to learn, but also the senior folks who feel like, I've done this for so long, I don't want it to go to waste. I can teach somebody, and then we make it worth their while by giving them some compensation as well. So it serves both parties very well.
Does it change, like do they go to like a reduced schedule, or are they doing the same amount of hours but just dividing them?
So our endeavor is to keep productivity tops, right? So we try to make it such that it's on the job learning.
Okay.
So I'm learning something, and I'm checking with you as my mentor if this amount of quality is good enough. And he says, no, you missed a spot there. This is what you can do. This is how this is how you could have sequenced your tasks to make sure that you didn't miss that and you didn't have to do a cover-up job later on. Things like that. So this constant interaction and constant learning will not show in within 2 weeks or within 3 weeks, but it will take 45 days, or that's a typical average, 30 days to 45 days for it to actually show that it has borne fruit. So then we have the evaluations planned at that time.
Okay. So is there, if I understand correctly, so we've got the journeymen that are teaching, these apprentices and stuff like that. Who would be like the evaluator? Or is it in your department, or do you have like specific people?
So in the interest of keeping it all easy to roll out, we've created a mechanism where the journey person himself will evaluate the gentleman who he has trained, but we keep it quick. So 5 quick parameters to identify the quality of this particular, whatever it is that was built. So we keep it. If I have to create a mechanism where I have somebody else come to evaluate that person, then I'm having to take him away from his job, lose productivity, come here and evaluate somebody. It's not like it's an immediate, I've evaluated you, here's a raise. It's not immediate anyway. So we may as well just, we always think of not making perfection the enemy of progress.
Right.
So we want to take small incremental steps, and then over a period of time, once a year when we're doing our performance evaluations, then we evaluate to say, hey, this is how your performance has improved. Let me see where you compare where you started and where you're at right now. And there's a lot of improvement. So fine, then we can tie it with your wage increase.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean that really gets into a good segue, and I think it's something that is super important, but I think until you've been on a job site, you probably are not aware of how important it is, and it's safety, right? Like how important is safety in the, like I'm saying workplace, and we're sometimes like office jobs and stuff like that
Yep.
can still be dangerous. But how important is safety, especially on the job sites?
Super important. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
at the end of the day, people contribute to the team, but they make a sacrifice every day to come and to leave their work where or leave their home
Yeah.
where they have safety, and
Right.
and they are putting their life at risk to some degree.
Yeah.
Right? Construction is one of the most dangerous work environments.
It's true.
So, but that doesn't mean that it always is dangerous, because
Yeah.
you mitigate
Doesn't
the
mean
risk,
it's
right?
unsafe.
It
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's unsafe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's well said. The
Yeah.
dangers are there, but it doesn't mean it's unsafe. There's ways to mitigate the risk associated to it. So, what's been really important for us over the years is to build a solid safety program. So, just as an example, I think we just finished a few weeks ago. We had an external audit
Yes.
Okay.
where
Pass
we had-
with flying colors.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So we had an auditor come in and evaluate our safety program. And upon passing, you get a certification. You remain certified. You can lose your certification, but you remain certified, and that speaks to the level of seriousness and also perhaps detail that you put into your safety program to protect those that come to work every day, that put their that leave their shelter, leave their home where it's a safe place to come to, a space where there's a little bit more danger. So it's very important, right? We never want anybody to come to work and go back
go
home
back or-
in an ambulance, right? Or where we have to, call their spouse to let them know. And believe me, I've done that before, and it's not a fun conversation to have, and we want to avoid it at all cost. It's so safety. Any new hire that works for us, we take a good 2 hours
Yep.
as part of the onboarding process to walk them through our safety program.
Okay.
Right, and not only our safety program, but what are the regulations, similar to when you drive a vehicle, you have to wear your seatbelt. So there are some regulations that we have to respect in the construction industry to maintain a safe environment, and we take the time to do that, to explain that to every new hire. Plus, on a weekly basis, we have toolbox talks, and we have topics where we plan the different topics that we will discuss every week, and make sure that everybody gets the same message, and the message is clear.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes a reminder of a certain safety policy. Sometimes it's a look back of an accident that we would have had a year ago, and we want to walk
sure it doesn't
through.
happen again.
Yeah, exactly. Walk through what happened, and walk through the different steps that we can now take in order to avoid that from happening. At the end of the day, you can be as successful as you want as an organization, but if you have injured workers, you're not successful.
No.
Yeah.
Right? That's the last thing you want.
And I've I've more recently seen the relationship between your care and attention with safety and employees' engagement, and also their productivity at the end of the day. Because
Absolutely.
I think there's nothing that says more not in a verbal way, but this says in a non-verbal way, where if you are in an unsafe environment, they don't care.
Yeah.
Right. And I find a lot of times it's in order for an employee to feel as though you care about them, it's important for them to feel safe, because
That's
they
right.
are making a sacrifice.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's and I don't know how involved you are on going on the job sites and stuff like that. What are common things that end up being this is maybe a yellow flag or something like that, but may end up being something that's pretty serious that sometimes gets overlooked, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen anything like that?
It depends on the job site.
Yeah.
Some job sites are, just by the nature of that type of project, present different risks than other projects. But I can't really point to that one thing. Perhaps it's making sure that as we start to build up in New Brunswick, we used to build like this. Now we're starting to build up, right?
Yeah, more cranes.
More cranes, exactly. So now you're working at heights,
Yeah.
right? More often than
Harnesses. Stuff
correct,
like that.
right?
Yeah,
So making sure that you have the right tie-off points, that they're using the right equipment to tie yourself off, that equipment not only is the right equipment, but it's inspected. And, you know, protect yourself generally from falling from heights. Second to that is, well, while we build up, we have holes from floor to floor to floor to floor. You think of an elevator, right? There's an elevator shaft. And, well, if you're building 8 stories, then that shaft typically
80 feet,
goes 8 stories, right? So you're 80, 90, 100 feet. That's a long fall. So you got to make sure that every floor has the proper, not only tie-offs, but here you're making sure that your openings are either covered or they're corded off properly with the right sort of barricades or barriers to prevent people from accidentally falling. You won't. Most falls are not because you jumped in the hole. It's because something happened, inattention, or you slipped or something like that caused you to fall. So you want to make sure you protect your folks, your team members, in case a trip or a slip or inattention happens.
How much, like, and I don't know if it's an easy question to answer, but how much communication is there from employees or even from leadership about some of the dangers on site? Because I'm just thinking, like, I don't want to name any specific scenarios that I've been in the past, but I've often, you know, heard after the fact of things that didn't get brought up, and then it puts them in danger, and you're like, why didn't you tell me? And you had, like, you know, you had the opportunity to do so, but they were like, well, we didn't think it would matter, and then turns out somebody falls off a ladder or something like that. Like, how much of a communication, or, you know, how much emphasis do you put on those things?
As often as you can, right? And I think that's a horrible answer, really, but you know, to piggyback on that, it's the daily huddles become really important. Your toolbox meetings, you know, become very important. The process by which you identify the risk and you communicate it to your team members, and the avenue that you create to allow your team members to contribute, you know, what they've seen for risk on site or dangers on site. So it's not one magic thing that you do. Perhaps just making sure that the communication line is open and you listen, right? The site foreman doesn't know everything and relies heavily on the eyes and ears and the knowledge of every installer on that team. And we leverage that, right? And make sure we listen to what those eyes and ears are hearing and seeing. And if we need to act swiftly to protect our work team, but also others on site, we will do it. Right?
I feel like you're.
I wanted to add, because he's speaking from the employee perspective and the site perspective. So I'd like to give you something from what we do from a leadership perspective. So we have a dedicated safety manager who looks after that, right? So what we do is we do roadshows. Every quarter we do roadshows. We go across to the regions and meet with them. We share case studies of what has transpired in the past with regards to safety and accidents and incidents that could have well been avoided. We talk about near misses and things like that. So we give them an insight of, you know, well, this could very easily have been avoided and things like that. Then we do circulars, which is practically every month. We have posters where we have like a little QR code there with a safety video talking about the theme of the month. So employees, when they're in their, you know, on their site, the posters up there, they just scan the QR code and watch the video that we want to, you know, talk about. In fact, just today, I around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're working on a little contest that we're having internally on what's holding you back from stretching, because we identified that employees who don't stretch causing themselves to be a little more stiff at work, and then there's injury that is an immediate outcome of that, and that happens to folks who've crossed 10 years, you know, in this field. So little things like that we're doing on an ongoing basis. We have pop quizzes, like I said, circulars, posters. We've even identified a bunch of 12 folks across all regions who are called safety champions. And so they become the extended eyes and ears of the safety team, so that when the safety manager cannot commute to sites, then they are there to do that monthly hazard assessment along with the supervisor doing his rounds to say, hey, this ladder has this error, or this particular harness is frayed, little things like that that might be missed. So those things are captured, and then we pick those things up for our monthly discussions. We have what are known as JOSH committee meetings, which is Joint Health and Safety Committee meetings. We have a dedicated committee from within the organization. We meet once a month, and we talk about those issues that have plagued us for the last month and what we can do about it. So a lot of awareness with regards to safety, because it has a firm place in our values. So safety, accountability, integrity, quality, and what am I missing? Learning. So these, because it takes that firm place, we don't want to let anything, kind of spoil that for us.
And it's funny you say that, just on the point of stretching. I was reading recently that one of the leading reasons for people in New Brunswick to miss work is back or shoulder injuries.
No doubt.
And you think a lot of it comes down to flexibility and just the overexertion that comes with physical work, but it also comes down to something as simple as a 5 to 10 minute stretching session, right?
That's right.
So
I often use the example. Have you ever gone to say a baseball game, professional baseball game?
Yeah.
If you
Montreal Expos.
Yeah, there you go, the Expos, right? Baseball players, some of them will stretch 45 minutes, an hour before the game. And this point might get argued, but it's not the sport, baseball is, where you have a lot of physical exertion. And you're certainly not lifting heavy. You're twisting, right? If you're hitting, you're twisting and you're moving your body quickly. But these people are stretching 45 minutes to an hour before they do their job. And in our industry, we're lifting 100 pounds.
And probably not stretching.
And not stretching, right?
At all, right?
So you see where there's a little bit of,
that's right.
right?
Yeah.
So that's where it becomes important really to put the perspective. It's like, listen, we're lifting heavy here and we're twisting our bodies when we're lifting. And if we want longevity in our career, we have to take care of our body. And there's more to that too. It's not just stretching, but how do we talk about nutrition? How do we talk about what we actually fuel our body with, and proper lifting techniques, and how do we use equipment to assist lifting? And those are things that we're very interested in exploring, just because we know, like you highlighted very well, we know that soft tissue injuries are one of the leading causes for people to miss work due to workplace injury in our field. So it's a problem that we're trying to fix, and it starts first and foremost with stretching, warming up and stretching.
Now, in retail, usually the leading cause for missing a day of work is a nice sunny Friday afternoon, but I mean, that's debatable as well. But, you make a really good point there, and I'd encourage anyone that is in the industry to really focus on their health and well-being, because I think your body is a vehicle for the process of making your life fulfilling, and if you're in a physical labor, it's like, that vehicle is being used all the time, right? So it is a machine. You can't have molasses for oil and expect your bike to run nonstop, right? So I think a lot of people, they think I don't have the time, or it's not that important or whatnot, but it's like, hey, do you want to maybe, work till you're 55, but do it very healthily, or do you want to barely struggle to get to 50, and then, you're going to retirement, you're not going to even enjoy those next 5, 10, 15 years, right?
Yeah, can't go for a walk because your knee hurts or something like that.
I started playing soccer again, and even now, I stopped for a little while, and I continue to be very physically active, but my knees hurt. And so it's it's crazy how your body starts breaking down, right? And I think it's important to always consider age will catch up to you.
Age is a
right?
factor.
You guys, you mean?
Touche. Now, do you put a lot of, we're talking about the topic of health and nutrition, all that. Do you put quite a significant amount of time in that education process, or is it something that's more new, or?
Yeah, I was going to say Deolinda mentioned some circulars that we circle,
It's
and
a great start.
you know, we as part of the calendar of topics that we prepare throughout the year, make room for not only physical well-being but mental well-being as well, right? Both of those play a very important role in your feeling of, you know, fulfillment and satisfaction and happiness in and outside of work. So it's an important piece that we're looking at. No doubt we can do more, and I think, you know, it starts, however, in the education piece and passing the resources to our staff and our team, so that, you know, if they need, they have access to it. So, and part of our benefits package, we have a very good coverage as it relates to, you know, some medical practitioners on the perhaps the physical side, and then we have an employee family assistance program as well on the mental well-being side, or psychological well-being side. So we have a, you know, a very comprehensive benefit package that that can give the tools and the support that anybody requires to, you know, find fulfillment, joy, and being able to, you know, live life outside of work.
I wanted to kind of tie in just one little part that I think is comes a little bit from what you were saying with the 1.6 million people that are in the industry, and also the year-round work that's currently happening. And we're also seeing a lot of news, and I think the trends and all of that of like, how are we ever going to catch up with all of this demand here? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how is the future dark or bright, or like, do you think there's going to be a point where we do catch up? Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. Right.
So I'd like to start by saying that retention is the new recruitment. Right off the bat. So holding on to the guys that you have, and given that you've invested so much to train them and bring them up the curve, right? So holding on to them is very important. Secondly, as far as you know, growth in New Brunswick is concerned, we're piggybacking on that, because New Brunswick has become this hub for, you know, like the go-to place. Everybody wants to come in here, especially tradespeople. So all of them have heard that New Brunswick is booming. Construction is booming, so we're safe for the next couple of years. I think you can safely say that. And as for the talent that we are lacking and that we don't have, we're doing it internally. We're building it up, we're building skills and having them organically develop themselves. So we're giving them a platform to develop themselves. So hopefully they will, the senior folks who have good talent will make space in their time or in their schedule to train the new folks that come on board, and we keep that cycle going. And then if we're an employer of choice, and you know, we're doing the right things, and people will want to work with us.
It's true.
I'll add to that. I think, you know, whether the future is bleak or whether the future is positive, I think the future is positive. I think, you know, that mindset's very important from the onset. If you believe that the future is bleak, then you're already a couple of steps back. When you think of the future as an opportunity for improvement and betterment, then you give yourself a fair chance of success. So I think that the future in construction is positive, but it's not going to be easy. It's not an easy journey ahead of us. We have some workforce constraints. We have in New Brunswick an aging population, and more specifically in trades, it's an aging population as well. We have a bunch of people that are in their early 20s that want to join trades, and contrary to what people oftentimes discuss, you know, our youth are very interested and motivated 100%. To learn, right? And now you need to give them the right roadmap for them to learn and develop, right? It's not shut up and listen to what I say anymore. It's here's what I would like for you to learn in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months. And this is what we're going to do to help you get there. So I think, you know, one thing that Deolinda and I discuss very often is from a development perspective, we don't own the development of an individual in terms of their effort that they put.
Right.
What we own is the environment that we create for them to develop. So when we look at, is the future bleak or is the future positive? When the organization looks at contributing to that workforce gap,
Yeah.
by looking at, what part of the business do we need to improve to make sure that the future is positive? We look at development and how we develop. And we look at, who are we recruiting and who are we retaining?
Yeah.
But where it complexifies, it's a social problem, right?
True. Yeah.
It's a social problem, and we can talk a little politically, or we can talk about the sheer volume of multi-units or just housing in general that needs to pop up in a very short amount of time to correct a housing gap that we have. That's a problem.
Yeah.
But what we have in New Brunswick is smart people and motivated people to fix those problems.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of room for those people to help fix problems.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that, right? We're seeing builders and developers, we're seeing municipalities get on board, provincial government get on board. Maybe not enough, right? But we're slowly getting there. But there's the future is positive if you choose to look at it that way.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Now, I usually try to end with one question, and I think it's one that is pretty easy to relate for, whether it's you answer it based on the industry, or maybe it's from a past experience or whatnot. But we've been talking about the younger generation and maybe the way that they learn differently, the environment they create for them. But I always wonder is, if you were to do it all over again, or if you had your younger self in front of you, like, what advice would you give them today?
You want to go?
The younger folks in
either here, if you were confronted with yourself 10 years ago, that, I really try to keep it as open as possible, because I think it's like, we learn so much throughout the years, and I think what we've always wanted to make this show is, like, we want to give it, whether it's going to get to youth or not, we always wanted to create this channel where people were maybe going to get that inspiration to go for that crazy idea, or that, oh, listen, this person is kind of on that same path that I was in, or, they went through this rocky road and they made it, like I can too, right? So that's why we asked that question, right?
So I think that if I had to ask myself that question, I'd say continuous learning is very, very important.
I like that.
Because if I'm learning every single day and I'm using that, and I always say that knowledge never goes to waste, right?
It's true.
So regardless of what trade or what industry or what it is, if you're learning and you're constantly pushing yourself to learn, you're becoming a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
And I wanted to also say something with regards to planning and things like that.
Yeah.
So there's this Abraham Lincoln's quote that I use very often. I've been in learning and development for several years, so I can't go without saying that. So he says, if you've been given 6 hours to cut a tree, spend 4 hours sharpening the saw.
Okay.
So when you're learning, you're sharpening that saw.
Right.
Right? So you're constantly keeping yourself, and then, then you can take on any challenge, because you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing, because you've learned it. And what you didn't know, you made it your endeavor to learn.
Yeah.
So
I love that. It's going to be a hard one to beat.
3 things.
no, he's very good.
3 things for me.
Good.
Stay curious.
Yeah.
Is one thing that I tell myself. If I were 18 years old, Jamie, sitting in front of 37-year-old Jamie, stay curious.
Okay.
Look at the world as an endless amount of possibilities. Be creative, because as the world complexifies, more problems arise, and we don't realize how many problems we need to fix in the run of a day. So be creative, because creativity will help you find the right solution to a problem. And third, growth mindset. It's similar to what Deolinda said. If you're going to cut a tree and you have 6 hours, spend 4 hours sharpening the saw. Sharpen yourself. And that, the creativity, the curiousness, and the growth mindset they have, close ties together, but the growth mindset is very important because the world is complexifying, the world is changing, and you as a person need to find ways to adapt to those changing environments, right? And not only that, but you want to contribute to the success of the changing environment. So keep yourself sharp and keep growing. Read, right? Watch videos, learn. Spend time with someone who knows a little bit more about something than you do, and listen, right? We were talking about our kids on our way here, and some of the comments that some of the learnings we tried to instill in our kids, and we had a conversation I had with my oldest son about, being very swift to answer something that he had no idea what he was talking about, and the lesson was just listen.
Right.
Not so much listen to your parents, but if you don't know this, just listen and learn, and that's very good, right? So that's what I tell myself if I had 18-year-old Jamie here: keep learning, keep growing, be curious, and be creative.
Yeah, I love that. That's really, you guys really can't really add anything to that.
We could thank our agent for this.
Anything that you want to leave off with, like whether it's, if they want to get in contact with you, or if there's anything that you might want to share. Obviously we've heard that there are opportunities with Fundy Pros.
Oh yes.
Yeah. I'll say one thing first, and then you can finish it off. At Fundy Pros, we didn't talk too much about our journey and where we want to go, but our journey is to be the best in the world.
Okay.
And we are intentionally working towards being the best in the world at getting work done safely. We talked about safety a while ago, and finishing work on time. And we're very interested in meeting people that are not only A players and top performers and top tradespeople, while we absolutely love being in front of people with a good pedigree, but we also want to meet people that are very interested and eager to learn. And I think that's a nice segue into HR. How do we reach HR? How do we reach that? But we're just, we're not just this drywall company. We're here to make a difference in Atlantic Canada and be the best in the world at this, and help our customers fix problems that they have on site.
Love it.
So I think Fundy Pros has a very good reputation for being on time. And that's something that I can safely say for all of us working in the office as well. And that's what trickles down to our folks, right? So a big strength that we rely on is keeping our word. And that goes for all facets of what we do. So keeping our word, staying on time, that's something that we do very well. And we want to continue to do that to keep our respect and have our trust continue to build trust with our folks.
Yeah. And without your word, you don't really have anything at all, right?
That's right. That's right. It's a very inexpensive way to build trust, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
How can people reach us? I think was one of your questions. Yeah.
Can you do it directly online through Facebook? What's the best way to, if they're interested in applying for a position?
So they can reach out. They can reach out to us on the website. I'd say that's the easiest way to do have their resume come directly to us. If not, then they'll have to go through the job boards such as Indeed or LinkedIn, where we have our posts out. But I think the quickest way is to go to the Fundy Pros website and just drop in the resume, and we'll have someone contact them.
And we usually put everything in the description too, so
awesome.
We'll get you all set up for that.
Good.
So thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure getting to know both of you more in depth, and also to get to learn a little bit more about Fundy Pros. And I do wish you all the best with everything, and to get right to the top, like you said, and be the best out there. So thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
it was fun.
Perfect.
It was fun.
That's it.
Super.
Thank you.